Illegal immigrants have created enormous financial drains on states and communities where they have migrated, forced many hospitals out of business because of having to care for immigrants who have no funds. In Southern California alone, dozens of hospitals have closed their doors. Inundated the schools with their children and demanded that they receive instruction in their native language rather than in the language of our nation, English. They have also filled the prisons with their criminal element in highly impacted areas. 30% of federal prison inmates, the perpetrators of violent crimes, are illegal aliens. They have brought with them drugs and other contraband that harms Americans, formed criminal gangs and syndicates that terrorize various communities, refused to assimilate or even to aspire to gain citizenship. They have demanded the return to Mexico of several southwestern states, flown the flags of foreign nations, heaped scorn on the stars and stripes, and even produced their own Spanish-language version of the Star-Spangled Banner. They have accepted work at reduced scales with the result that pay scales for poorer Americans have been lowered, broken our laws against the manufacture and use of fraudulent visas, passports, and social security identification. They have cast illegal ballots and formed political blocs to support politicians who champion their cause. They have skirted tax laws while insisting on social services paid for by taxpayers. And they have forced the overworked and outmanned U.S. Border Patrol to create a new category of illegal entrants called OTMs, other than Mexicans. These are Arab speakers, Asians, Eastern Europeans, Latin Americans, and others. During the last 4 years, the serious consequences of mass immigration have become more obvious. Numerous state governments are near bankruptcy because of having to provide various benefits to the hordes who have broken into our country and thumbed their noses at our laws. Yet these law-breaking invaders delight in receiving welfare, housing, medical care, education for their children, and other benefits. Illegal immigrants have accepted work at lower pay scales, thereby lowering the wages that can be earned by citizens and legal immigrants who are awaiting citizenship. Added to this development is the severe economic downturn that has left millions of Americans unemployed. Yet, as immigration specialist Robert Rector has concluded, if current laws were enforced, there would be 10 million jobs for legal citizens. Because of our nation's recession, a small percentage of illegals have left our nation. Occasionally, the slight decrease in their number, less than 10%, has been pointed to as proof that the problem is being solved. This is absurd. There are still many millions in our country who should not be here. History shows that amnesty for illegal entrants only encourages more to illegally cross the border. An extensive survey taken in Mexico by the liberal Pew Hispanic Center showed that 40% of Mexico's citizens, that's almost 50 million people, would like to move to the United States. Are we willing to accept all of these people and more into our country? In 1986, Congress passed and the President signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act. It granted amnesty to 2.7 million illegal immigrants who are already here. The politicians who crafted this bill assured opponents that they had solved the immigration problem. They informed fellow legislators and the American people that there wouldn't be any more illegal crossings of the border. But just the opposite happened, as even more illegals started flooding across the southern border. We turn again to William Jasper of the New American Magazine. He has some important perspective about the supposed worth of any amnesty proposal.
We have no excuse for falling for another program of amnesty. We know the consequences. We've seen it many times. We have had many different amnesties already implemented in this country. We were told this is going to be a one-time thing. We have several million illegal aliens in this country who we should just give amnesty, let them become legalized, then they'll become productive citizens, they'll come out of the shadows, and everything will be wonderful. Well, we've done this time after time, and what we find out is that as soon as those people are legalized, those people who are here criminally are legalized, we see a chain migration. They bring in more family members, or it encourages people who are completely unrelated to them to come into the country. One amnesty begets another.
There's another serious side to the illegal immigration problem. Amnesty rallies frequently include displays with signs stating, "Today we march, tomorrow we vote." Occasionally, children of illegal immigrants show up wearing shirts or carrying signs that say, "Future voter." Eliseo Medina is an executive vice president of the huge Service Employees International Union, SEIU. He was quoted in a recent issue of Whistleblower magazine as follows: "Can you imagine 8 million new voters who care about our issues and will be voting? We will be creating a governing coalition for the long term, not just for an election cycle." Medina, himself an immigrant from Mexico, is also an honorary chairman of the Democratic Socialists of America, the U.S. arm of the Socialist International. The originators of the Socialist International were Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. Leaders in the early 20th century included communist Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Gaining ballot position for the 8 million that would surely be influenced by men like Medina would dramatically shift leftward the election results in many parts of our nation. If this man gets his way, the Declaration of Independence will be canceled, the Constitution will become a quaint relic of past history, and the United States would become a mere part of a world government led by totalitarian socialists. When he served in the White House, President George W. Bush legitimized the use of Mexico's matricular consular identification cards for immigrants in America. These cards were then used by illegal immigrants to obtain driver's licenses, open bank accounts, and in some areas where scrutiny was lax, even register to vote. In 2008, career State Department Foreign Service officer David Simcox published a report claiming that at least 1.8 million and possibly as many as 2.7 million non-citizens had voted in the 2006 election. States most heavily affected by this growing corruption of the voting process include California, Florida, Texas, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Arizona. The already serious attack on the voting privilege will only get worse with amnesty. Again, we recommend enforcement of existing laws, including demonstration of citizenship as a requirement to cast a ballot.